Zhang Yi continued, I have seen Yuan Kongya display her supernatural powers in the zombie war, including blessings, gifts, superhuman physical abilities, and the ice and snow abilities that I am particularly familiar with. Her abilities are not multiple applications of the same superpower, but multiple completely unrelated abilities. Zhang Yi crossed his arms and said lightly, this is definitely abnormal. If she really has her own superpowers, there is no need to hide it for so long until she had no choice but to use it to protect herself against the zombie tide. But she never showed it to anyone, which means that these superpowers have unspeakable secrets with unknown origins. So, I can conclude that those superpowers were taken from someone else when they die. And these people had also taken her ice soul at some point when they were alive. It's like her ice soul returns back to its source, only this time with the person's ability as well. Yang Xinshin's expression became serious. If that's the case, no one can say how strong Yuan Kongya is now. Every superpower has its weaknesses. But if one person possesses the abilities of many people at the same time, he or she is almost invulnerable. Zhang Yi added, so she longs for constant wars in Tianhai City, because those who get her ice souls are meaningless to her as long as they are alive. Only when they die, their abilities will be obtained by Yuan Kongya. Zhang Yi's heart moved, and his eyes became sharper. Perhaps the Great Purge is not only aimed at outsiders. There are also the group of people under her. After all, the Snow Worship sect also has a lot of mutants. Actually, it doesn't matter. Regardless of whether they are members of the Snow Worship sect or not, as long as they had taken her ice soul, their death would be a good thing for Yuan Kongya. Yang Xinshin nodded. Zhang Yi's analysis sounds very reasonable. However, it seems that there is still a lack of direct evidence to confirm this. Yang Xinshin said, this is indeed true, but these alone cannot convince other forces at all, and most importantly, they cannot convince the investigation team. And we can't go directly to Yuan Kongya to confront her either. Zhang Yi lowered his eyes a little. They were cold and deep, filled with an unquenchable determination. But we can't be ostriches this time. With the help of the corpse tide, she has already reduced the combat effectiveness of our 4 families by more than half. Moreover, before leaving, she gave each of us ice soul, which is a signal that she is about to take action against us all. The only thing she was afraid of now was the Jiangnan region. I'm afraid that once Bian Junwu and his men leave, that damn cult of hers will take action. Zhang Yi said this and reached out to take out a piece of white cloth from his pocket. In addition, there's this thing which can prove that my suspicion is based on something. Yang Xinshin took the white cloth curiously and took a look. It was densely written with words. And this is? Zhang Yi replied that it was given to him by Li Jian. He secretly stuffed it into my hand the day before I left. Zhang Yi thought of Li Jian's desperate face like a dead tree. He couldn't help but sigh and continued. His son is dead. If it weren't for this, I think with his character, he wouldn't risk telling me these things. Yang Xinshin carefully read the content of the white cloth. As Yang Xinshin read the letter, she couldn't help but gasp in shock. Underage boys who join the Snow Worship cult need to undergo a purification ritual? Yuan Kongya does it herself? Castration? And she also strangled a female priest to death with her own hands? Yang Xinshin took a moment before reading the latter part of the letter, sympathizing with Li Jian when he made mention of his son's death. And as a father, he's in more pain about not having the ability to avenge his son. But if one day the opportunity comes, he hopes this information would be helpful to Zhang Yi. After reading Li Jian's letter, Yang Xinshin slowly raised her head and looked at Zhang Yi. She then understood why Zhang Yi was so sure that Yuan Kongya had a problem. If that's the case, then I can understand everything she did. Zhang Yi crossed his arms and said calmly, Li Jian is closer to Yuan Kongya and also at the core of the Snow Worship sect. Based on what he wrote and the problems he found, it can be very helpful to us. I think combining these things together, it can almost be concluded that there are major problems with Yuan Kongya and the Snow Worship sect itself. The worst-case scenario is, as I said, the Ice Soul is a huge conspiracy, and her so-called generous gifts are just for a better return. So she has reason to make Tianhai City chaotic and let corpses spread all over the ground. Because the more people die, the more she benefits. And the faster she can also recover their abilities. It is even possible that this massive zombie crisis is related to her. If it weren't for the timely arrival of the people from the Jiangnan district, she didn't dare to do it too blatantly. At this time, I'm afraid we are all in danger. Zhang Yi's eyes were full of fear, imagining Yuan Kongya possessing such a terrifying power. No one in the entire Tianhai City, not even Zhang Yi, in fact, the whole of China and possibly even the whole world, would be able to become her enemy. If she is allowed to continue to develop, the entire world will be hers for the taking. Yang Xinshin sighed lightly. Even if we expose her, we will be bitten back. After all, everyone has been deceived by her from the very beginning, especially most of the followers of the snow worship sect, who have been brainwashed to the point of being willing to die for her. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows. We have to think of a way to deal with her quickly, and I think she also has an antisocial personality. Yang Xinshin looked at him and said faintly, with such a past, it's not strange no matter what she becomes, right? Zhang Yi took a deep breath. Yuan Kongye's experience was indeed miserable, but she can't be considered innocent. Everything has cause and effect. She was born in such a family and enjoyed the wealth brought by her parents' sins. Then what happened later can only be said to be karma. Zhang Yi was not in the mood to pity her now. How to face her threat is what he cared most about. Zhang Yi felt very heavy. The existence of such a mutant was like a mountain, suppressing the entire Tianhai city. At this point, Yuan Kongye probably doesn't even know just how many people's abilities she had absorbed. How strong is she? She's probably figuring it out as we speak. Zhang Yi couldn't imagine it, but he could be sure that it was definitely stronger than any other person in Tianhai city. Including him, Yuan Kongye might be almost invincible at this point. And this invincible existence would almost certainly attack them, because she gave them Ice Soul, and that was a signal that she's about to take action. It wasn't to ask Zhang Yi and the others to surrender, but to tell them to die. Now, the only path is through. We have to think of a way to deal with her threat. Zhang Yi raised his head and exhaled a long breath of turbid air, which was the anxiety accumulated in his heart. Yang Xinshin lowered his head and thought for a moment, then calmly said to Zhang Yi, if we want to deal with her, our strength alone is not enough. First, we must let other forces in Tianhai City know about Yuan Kongye's conspiracy. Secondly, and most importantly, we must get the support of the Jiangnan region. Because at this time in Tianhai City, after experiencing the war, each family has suffered heavy losses. Even if we unite, we may not be a match for Yuan Kongye. Zhang Yi nodded. I understand all this, and what you said makes a lot of sense. But the problem is that even if I tell them what I think, they may not believe it. And for the Jiangnan district, even if Yuan Kongye has plotted and calculated the deaths of everyone in Tianhai City, what does it have to do with them? Zhang Yi sneered. As one of the most powerful forces in the country, the Jiangnan district needs to maintain stability, not uphold justice. Therefore, even if Yuan Kongye calculates and eliminates us, as long as it does not negatively affect the country's interests as a whole, then the Jiangnan district have no reason to take action. Maybe they might even recruit her to work for them. As soon as Zhang Yi said this, the realization unsettled him greatly. Oh, what if the Jiangnan district really supports Yuan Kongye? What would we do then? And without the support of the Jiangnan district, can we really win against Yuan Kongye? Zhang Yi even thought of agreeing to Bian Zhenhua's original proposal and take everyone around him to the Jiangnan district. He couldn't afford such a gamble, and neither can he hide in his shelter. But can he really give up the shelter he has been running for a long time so easily? Zhang Yi's expression was unusually tangled. Can he really bear it? Here, he doesn't need to be restrained by anyone, he is free. But if he goes to Jiangnan district, according to Bian Zhenhu, he would have to become a screw in Blizzard City. The right of residence needs to be exchanged for a price, and the price had no limit. Just look at Bian Zhenhu. He is sacrificing his remaining life as a price for his family. No, I feel comfortable in the shelter. But as Zhang Yi thought of this, he also had a dilemma storming in his mind. If he goes to Blizzard City, he might die from overdrawing his superpowers. And if he doesn't go, there was also a high possibility that he might be killed by Yuan Kongye. What should he choose? But at this moment, Yang Xinshin looked at Zhang Yi with her amber eyes, as a smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. She slowly spoke. Brother Zhang Yi, if you want to drag the people of Jiangnan district into the waters, maybe there is a way. Zhang Yi raised his head and met her eyes. Yang Xinshin was terribly calm, and even though she knew the situation in front of them, she was not panicked at all. Xinshin, what are you thinking? Yang Xinshin said lightly. The world is bustling, all for profit. And with a bustling world, any kind of profit, no matter how awful or awesome, is still in the end a profit. As long as we grasp our desired people's core interests, we can naturally make them work for us, even the Jiangnan region. Brother Zhang Yi, what do you think the Jiangnan region is most worried about right now? Zhang Yi answered without hesitation. Of course, it's when someone is shaking their dominance, threatening their rule. Indeed, it is as Zhang Yi said. Including the investigation team, the reason they came to Tianhai City was because they are worried that the zombies will spread to other areas of Jiangnan district and cause a larger-scale turmoil. Yang Xinshin tilted her head slightly with a cheeky smile. If that's the case, then let them know that the zombie tide was artificially created by Yuan Kongye. Zhang Yi laughed dumbly. I have thought about that, but I haven't been able to produce any evidence. And that's the core of the problem I'm facing right now. For the longest time, I still don't have any substantial evidence. Zhang Yi even went deep into the bloodvine's location, collected the bloodvine's branches and leaves, and also stole a body that had been sucked dry. But after Zhou Qir's inspection, no zombie virus was found on and in it. Yang Xinxin smiled mysteriously. Big brother, sometimes you don't have to have evidence to do something. You just need to let Jiangnan district suspect Yuan Kongye. After all, the people in the district already know that there is such a possibility. If they found a suspect, they would not sit idly by. As long as there is suspicion, they can rely on their own strength to investigate Yuan Kongye. And if Yuan Kongye resists, it would confirm that there is something wrong with her. If she does not resist and allows the investigation, then I believe there will always be clues exposed. Zhang Yi's eyes gradually revealed a look of enlightenment. Oh? You mean spreading rumors? Exaggerate the threat of Yuan Kongye so that the Jiangnan district cannot leave her alone. Exactly. That's what I mean. Yang Xinxin said lightly. As the actual rulers of this area of the country, they will not allow such a huge destabilizing factor to exist in their own area. Also, there is one thing we have to confirm with absolute certainty. And that is, if Yuan Kongye possesses multiple superpowers at the same time. If she does, Bian Junwu needs to be informed. If he finds out, do you really think the Jiangnan district wouldn't be interested in her? Yang Xinxin's last sentence flashed through Zhang Yi's mind like a flash of lightning. That's right, he thought. As long as it attracts the attention of the Jiangnan district, it will be fine. It wouldn't matter whether Yuan Kongye is the mastermind behind everything. As long as she is exposed to everyone and attracts the attention of the Jiangnan district, she will not dare to act recklessly. The Jiangnan district could even take her away. If they do choose to do that, then won't Tianhai City be safe? Zhang Yi thought this was a good idea. He held his chin and thought about it for a while. This idea was very good, but it needed to be planned carefully and used at the very least as a backup plan. After all, people can't make decisions on a whim, and that's very dangerous sometimes when it's really needed. Seeing Zhang Yi like this, Yang Xinxin smiled faintly, then turned to face the monitor. Big brother, we still haven't looked at the information of one person. Yang Xinxin's slender and dexterous white hands gently tapped on a button on the panel, opening Zhang Yixian's information. Zhang Yi then remembered that he had not seen Zhang Yixian's information. With his arms folded, he raised his eyebrows and said, "At this time, is his existence still important? Ever since we came into contact with the snow worship sect, Zhang Yixian has been like Yuan Kongye's puppet. He does everything, and Yuan Kongye is only responsible for controlling him from behind. On the surface, Yuan Kongye has always been hiding in the back, seemingly only interested in taking care of the church's affairs, and Zhang Yixian, on the other hand, took care of everything else. Also, although Zhang Yixian's strength is good, after experiencing many battles, Zhang Yi can be sure that his strength is at most the same level as Xiao Honglian, Wei Dinghai and Xing Tian. It was difficult for him to pose a big threat to Zhang Yi. Yang Xinxin continued to press a few buttons and said calmly, "As of now, we still only know a little. But we had to make sure whether the matter is a conspiracy of Yuan Kongye alone, or does the entire snow worship sect know about it? These are two completely different concepts. If it is the former and everyone else was kept in the dark and deceived by Yuan Kongye, then we have a chance to turn her subordinates against her. If it is the latter, we need to face a sect with many insidious and sinister mutants." Zhang Yi put his hands in his pockets and recalled the 10 days he spent in the camp of the snow worship sect. In that battle, most of the snow worship sect was killed or wounded, and only 1 in 100 survived. And many mutants also died. If they knew the truth of the matter, it would be too much of an act, even if they risked their lives. So I think it is impossible for too many people to know about this. It is likely that only Yuan Kongye and a few others know about it. Hearing Zhang Yi's assessment, Yang Xinxin said calmly, "Let's take a look at Zhang Yixian's information first. Maybe there is an answer here." Zhang Yi just stared blankly at the screen and checked Zhang Yixian's personal biography. Zhang Yixian's life did not have too many ups and downs. He was born in a middle-class family in Tianhai City, and his family was relatively wealthy. His parents were not religious, but they were neighbors with Yuan Kongye's family. Therefore, Zhang Yixian and Yuan Kongye knew each other since childhood. To be exact, Zhang Yixian was 8 years old back then. He is 5 years older than Yuan Kongye, and has always been her big brother. After Yuan Kongye experienced that tragic incident, her whereabouts became a mystery. But in the records about Zhang Yixian, he also left Tianhai City at the same time. So in the data, Xiao Honglian's guess was written that the two of them must have lived together. Yuan Kongye, who was mentally traumatized, is suspected to have gone to a well-known domestic sanatorium for treatment. and Zhang Yi has always been by her side. After reading the records about Zhang Yi, Zhang Yi's face showed a thoughtful look. It seems that Zhang Yi should know all of Yuan Kongye's plans. It can even be said that this plan was conspired by the two of them. As for the other people in the sect, most of them were kept in the dark when they came for Yuan Kongye's blessing. In the end, most of them lost their lives in a confused manner. Zhang Yi couldn't help but make a light joke about the believers of the snow worship sect. They were only interested in the little interest the sect gave them, but apparently the sect was interested in their principle. Those who defected to the snow worship sect thought they could get shelter, but unexpectedly most of them died. And the remaining people are unlikely to survive, especially those mutants. They are just the nutrients that Yuan Kongye cultivated for herself. The more Zhang Yi analyzed, the clearer his mind became. This makes sense. I have said it before, there is no such thing as a free lunch. No wonder the snow worship sect is recruiting followers so loudly. Obviously, their own supplies are so scarce, because these people are actually Yuan Kongye's food. Only by doing this can they obtain a large number of test subjects. They then carefully select those with talents, and grant them ice souls to awaken their abilities. Finally, use various means to make them die. Then their abilities will belong to Yuan Kongye. Zhang Yi's mind became clearer and clearer. He thought of the empty shell mutants he found on the battlefield during the Battle of the Five Forces. After they died, Zhang Yi was unable to absorb their abilities. That was because after they died, all their abilities returned to Yuan Kongye's body. How many abilities did she absorb? Zhang Yi had already made up his mind. Yuan Kongye, who had been planning since the beginning of the apocalypse, and had now grown into the most powerful person in Tianhai City, was a manipulator behind the scenes. Her scheming made Zhang Yi feel cold all over. For a moment, he received too much information, making a mess in his head. Too messy. I have to go back and think about this matter carefully. Xin, you must help me think about it. What should we do to avoid being liquidated by the people of the snow worship sect? At this moment, Zhang Yi didn't have any fluke in his heart. Yuan Kongye even killed tens of thousands of his followers. Since she was willing to sacrifice her sect, there was no reason to let her go. Besides, she gave Zhang Yi ice soul. And, in terms of supernatural powers, Zhang Yi was the best in Tianhai City, perhaps second only to her. Have you ever seen a cat that doesn't eat fish? So, as it stands now, Zhang Yi had only two options. Either give up the shelter and escape to the Jiangnan district, or find a way to get rid of Yuan Kongye, kill her or abolish her power, at least so that she would not become a threat to him. Yang Xin nodded. This matter was complicated and there were still many doubts that had not been sorted out. And this incident might be related to the life and death of the entire shelter. They must treat it with caution and think of a perfect plan. Zhang Yi left the control room and returned to his room. He kicked off his slippers and jumped onto the soft velvet bed. This big bed that Prince Wang had customized from Rome was worth millions and was extremely comfortable to sleep on. Zhang Yi thought, if I really want to leave Tianhai City, I have to take this bed with me. No, not just this bed. I must take away all the furniture that can be taken away with me as well. Then he found his thoughts funny. At this time, he was still thinking about a mattress. In fact, was it a mattress that he couldn't bear to part with? Obviously not. What he couldn't bear to part with was the happy and comfortable life in the shelter. But now, a huge crisis lies ahead, forcing him to plan ahead. Zombie tide, snow worship cult, ice soul, blood vine. Many words swayed in Zhang Yi's mind. He still had many questions in his mind that he couldn't explain clearly. But if he couldn't figure these out in one day, he wouldn't know what to do next. Any combat plan must be based on two conditions. The first is sufficient strength. The second is detailed intelligence. Both are indispensable. Zhang Yi was lying on the bed, feeling confused. At this moment, he could conclude that Yuan Kongye was the source of the unrest in Tianhai City. But what did the zombie crisis have to do with her? Even if she had superpowers, it was impossible to control so many zombies in various areas of Tianhai City at the same time, right? And judging from the attack of the bronze-armored flying corpse on the church that night, she did not have the ability to control the zombies. Otherwise, she would not have easily exposed her secret about having multiple unrelated superpowers. In other words, the zombies were not controlled by her. Could it be that someone else had cooperated with Yuan Kongye? Zhang Yi rubbed his eyebrows, with too many puzzles in his mind. He once thought that the zombie tide was related to the blood vine. From what Lien said, he vaguely thought of something. But he did confirm that there was no zombie virus in the blood vine. If the zombies were created by it, it would be impossible to have no traces. With all kinds of doubts and worries, Zhang Yi gradually closed his eyes. After fighting for such a long time with his nerves tense, he was actually very tired. Lying on his bed, it was easy to fall asleep. However, in his dream, Zhang Yi did not know why he appeared in the abandoned building. The huge blood vine in front of him was taller than in his memory, stretching for thousands of meters. This was very strange. Zhang Yi remembered that it was only more than 100 meters tall. But after the hazy blood mist in front of him dissipated, he suddenly saw an extremely shocking scene. He saw the roots of the blood vine under the ground, messy and mixed, and kept piercing deep into the ground. And on top of the roots, there were zombies one after another. They were like peanuts in the soil, with the roots of the blood vine inserted into their bodies, and then a steady stream of bright red nutrients entered their bodies. So that's it. Zhang Yi widened his eyes, and he realized at this time that he had missed something very crucial back then. That was the root of the blood vine. Zombies have always lived underground, and it is obvious that they are more adapted to the damp and dark environment underground. In a trance, Zhang Yi saw a figure appear above his head. As his sight gradually got closer, Zhang Yi could see his appearance clearly. It was Lien who possessed the ability of sacrifice. Lien came to the blood vine and cut his wrist. The blood flowed into the roots of the blood vine like a stream and was greedily absorbed by it. Then, the roots of the blood vine grew more vigorously, and the zombies hanging on it also became fuller. Lien, it turns out that he is the key. Zhang Yi figured out the cause and effect of the matter at once. At this moment, on the roots in front of him, thousands of zombies suddenly opened their scarlet eyes and stared at him. Zhang Yi suddenly woke up from his sleep. He panted quickly, reached out and wiped his forehead, and a lot of sweat flowed down. However, the complicated clues in his mind became clear because of a dream. I understand everything now. Zhang Yi's eyes became deep and bright. He found the thread in the mess of wool, and he only needed to sort it out based on this to sort out the complete context of the incident. Zhang Yi got down from the bed, took out a notebook from the bedside table, and wrote down everything while his mind was clear. The zombie crisis broke out 21 days ago. The 5 major forces in Tianhai City were attacked by zombies at the same time. Lien was taken to the snow worship sect a month ago. In other words, the reason why there were no zombies in Tianhai City before was because the blood vine was too weak to create zombies. And with Lien's devotion power strengthened, the blood vine can produce a large number of mature mother bodies in a short period of time. This should be the source of the Corpse King. After the Corpse King is produced, the virus can be infused into suitable corpses to create a large number of zombies. But in the group, the Corpse King and the bronze-armored corpses are obviously different from other zombies, because they truly have life and even wisdom. The Corpse King is the core of the corpse group and represents the mind. The bronze-armored corpses represent power. Yuan can control the blood vine and give orders to the Corpse King, but she cannot directly command the corpse group. The Corpse King is not very intelligent and can only accept simple orders. This can be seen from the fact that it needs to slowly learn human behavior patterns. This can also explain why the bronze-armored flying corpse attacked Yuan. As for why I didn't get any information from the blood vine, it must be because they hid the most crucial thing before we went to the snow worship sect. They even deliberately left a loophole for us to investigate the blood vine to dispel our suspicion. After Zhang Yi finished writing, he threw the pen in his hand on the table and exhaled a long breath. Finally, everything is sorted out. This should be the truth. Zhang Yi's eyes became bright, and the worry in his eyes was no longer there. As long as we understand the root of everything, we can find a way to deal with it. Zhang Yi touched his chin. Since the zombie tide can be controlled by Yuan, she can't let her big killer be destroyed so easily. So, everything is just a show for us. No, to be precise, it's a show for the investigation team of Jiangnan District. They were afraid of Jiangnan District, and they must let the investigation team think that the zombie crisis in Tianhai City has been resolved before the team will leave. But once Bian Junwu and his team really leave, Yuan can attack us unscrupulously. Even if she has absorbed the power of many mutants and her strength is terrifying, she can't rely on her own strength to eliminate every one of our forces. Then, she must have retained a considerable number of zombies. Even more than those that appeared outside the snow worship sect before. The more Zhang Yi thought about it, the more terrifying he felt Yuan was. He had seen that woman before, about 20 years old, with a cold and immature look. But she's actually a girl who possesses such a meticulous mind, which is really creepy. But thinking about it carefully, Zhang Yi feels that everything is very reasonable. If he had the ability of Yuan, he will definitely choose the same approach as her. The current situation was very dangerous. The first thing to do was to stabilize Bian Junwu and the others, and not let them leave Tianhai City. And since she'd currently absorbed the abilities, and even the strength of so many mutants, Even if her identity was revealed, who can kill her? Zhang Yi pondered for a long time, and the answer to this question still elusive in his mind. He couldn't find an answer. If they really tore their faces right now, he didn't think he had a way to deal with Yuan Kongya. Maybe Bian Junwu has the ability to fight her. But with his physical condition, if he had another battle between top mutants, it would definitely accelerate his death. Will he agree? Will Bian Junwu agree to overdraw his life?